The morning began like any other for the farmer. The air was fresh, and the sun had just started to rise above the wide fields. Birds sang softly in the distance, and the wind carried the smell of grass and earth. He was driving home after feeding his animals, thinking about the day ahead, when something unusual caught his eye. Far across the road, through the thin mist, he saw smoke. At first, he thought someone was burning trash or maybe clearing land. But then he noticed how dark the smoke was and how quickly it rose. Something felt wrong. He drove closer, his heart beginning to pound as the shape of a wrecked car came into view. It had crashed into a big tree at the side of the road. Flames flickered under the hood, and the black smoke kept rising higher. It was the kind of scene people usually saw on the news, not on a quiet country road. He stopped his old truck a few feet away and jumped out. The heat was intense even from a distance. As he ran closer, he saw someone inside the car. The man in the driver's seat wasn't moving. His head was against the steering wheel, and the car door looked jammed. The farmer's chest tightened. The car could catch fire at any second. For a moment, fear tried to stop him. He was just a simple farmer, not a firefighter or a police officer. But there was no one else here, no sirens, no help coming. It was only him, the flames, and the man trapped inside. He pulled his shirt over his mouth to block the smoke and ran toward the car. "Hey, can you hear me?" he shouted, hoping the man inside would respond. There was no answer. Only the crackle of fire. The farmer looked around for something to break the glass. He spotted a big rock near the road and grabbed it. With one hard swing, he smashed it against the driver's side window. The glass shattered into pieces, some hitting his arms. But he didn't care. He reached inside to unlock the door, but it was bent from the crash. It wouldn't open. The flames were growing stronger now, climbing toward the windshield. "Come on. Come on," he muttered under his breath as he reached in through the broken window and tried to pull the man out. The man was heavy and still unconscious. Smoke burned the farmer's eyes, making it hard to see. His arms ached, but he didn't stop. Finally, with one big pull, the man slid out through the window. The farmer grabbed him under the arms and dragged him away from the car, step by step, his boots sliding on the dirt. He didn't stop until they were far enough from the wreck. He dropped to his knees, coughing hard. The man was lying on the ground, breathing but still not fully awake. The farmer leaned over him. "You're safe now. Just stay still," he said, his voice rough from the smoke. A few seconds later, there was a loud noise behind them. The car exploded. The fire shot high into the air, and pieces of metal flew across the road. The farmer turned his body to shield the man from the blast. Luckily, they were far enough to avoid getting hurt, but the heat rolled over them like a wave. The man slowly opened his eyes, coughing and confused. "What happened?" he whispered. "You were in a crash," the farmer said quickly. "But you're okay now. Just stay down and don't try to move." The man blinked at him, his face pale and covered in soot. He looked around, as if trying to understand where he was. Then his eyes focused on the farmer. You pulled me out?" he asked weakly. "Yeah," the farmer said, wiping sweat and dirt from his face. "Had to break the window. You weren't waking up." The man coughed again, trying to sit up, but the farmer gently pushed him back. "Don't move too much. Help will come soon." The man stared at him for a moment, like he wanted to say more, but his strength gave out. He lay back on the ground, breathing slowly. The farmer looked down the road, hoping someone would pass by or call for help. He didn't have his phone with him. Out here, cars didn't come by often. It felt like they were in the middle of nowhere, just him, the injured man, and the burned wreck still smoking in the distance. Minutes passed before a car finally stopped, and a couple jumped out. They quickly called for an ambulance. The farmer stayed beside the man the whole time, keeping him awake, making sure he was okay. He didn't even ask for the man's name. It didn't matter. All that mattered was that he was alive. The farmer didn't know that this moment, this act of courage, would soon change his life in ways he never imagined. The ambulance sirens finally broke the heavy silence of the countryside. The farmer stayed by the stranger's side until the paramedics arrived. They moved quickly, checking the man's pulse, shining a light in his eyes, speaking in fast, calm voices. The farmer stepped back to give them space, his hands still shaking. A little. He could smell the smoke on his clothes, feel the heat on his skin from the fire that had almost taken a life just moments ago. The man on the ground was still weak, coughing from the smoke. He looked up at the farmer again. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice hoarse. The farmer nodded. "Don't talk. Just let them help you." The paramedics lifted the man onto a stretcher. One of them asked the farmer what happened, and he explained everything quickly: the crash, the fire, the broken window, how he had to pull the man out just before the car exploded. They wrote it all down and told him he had done the right thing, that without his courage, the man wouldn't have made it. But the farmer didn't feel like a hero. He just felt relief that the stranger was alive. The man was loaded into the ambulance, but before they closed the doors, he grabbed the farmer's arm weakly. His grip was shaky but firm enough to show he meant it. "You saved my life," he said softly, his eyes locking with the farmer's. The farmer gave a small smile. Anyone would have done it. The man shook his head faintly, like he disagreed. But he was too tired to argue. The ambulance doors closed, and the siren wailed as it sped down the road toward the hospital. The farmer stood there for a moment, watching until the sound faded. Then he turned back to his old truck. Life on the farm didn't wait for anyone, not even for moments like this. He had animals to feed, fences to fix, crops to water. He climbed in and drove back home, his clothes still smelling of smoke, his hands still feeling the weight of dragging another human being out of danger. When he got back to the farm, he didn't tell anyone what happened. Not his neighbors, not even the people at the feed store later that day. It wasn't the kind of thing he wanted attention for. To him, it was simple. Someone needed help, so he helped. That was all there was to it. But the image of the stranger's pale face and the burning car stayed in his mind for the rest of the day. He wondered who the man was, where he came from, if he had a family somewhere worried about him. He didn't even know his name. That night, as he sat on his porch watching the sun go down, he thought about how close the man had come to dying. A few more seconds, and it would have been too late. The farmer wasn't sure how he had found the strength to pull the man out. He wasn't a young man anymore, and the stranger had been heavy and unconscious. Maybe it was the fear, the rush of knowing he didn't have a choice. Maybe when life puts you in front of someone in danger, you just act. The next day passed like normal. The farmer rose early, did his chores, fixed a broken gate, and worked in the fields. Nobody came by to ask about the accident. No one called. Life went on, simple and quiet, the way it always did. But 2 days later, a local deputy stopped by. He had been the one to write the accident report. He told the farmer that the man he rescued was recovering in the hospital and had asked about him. The farmer just nodded, saying he was glad the man was okay. He didn't ask for any details. The deputy looked at him for a moment and said, "You know, most folks wouldn't have risked it. That car could have gone up any second." The farmer shrugged, couldn't just leave him there. And that was the truth. He didn't think about danger when he saw someone trapped in a burning car. He just thought about getting him out. By the end of the week, the memory of the accident started to fade. The farmer didn't expect to hear from the stranger again. Maybe he lived far away. Maybe he had his own life to get back to. The farmer didn't need thanks or rewards. He had fields to plow and bills to pay. But what he didn't know was that the man he saved wasn't just any man. And very soon, his quiet, simple life was about to be interrupted in a way he could never have imagined. A week had passed since the accident. For the farmer, life had returned to its usual rhythm. He woke up with the sun, worked in his fields, fed his animals, and spent the evening sitting on his porch, watching the sky turn from gold to purple. It was the kind of life he was used to, quiet, predictable, and steady. The accident almost felt like a dream now. Sometimes, when he looked at the road near the old oak tree where it happened, he thought about the man he had pulled from the flames. Was he all right? Did he have a family? Did he even remember the farmer's face? The farmer never asked for updates. He figured if the man wanted to find him, he would. Otherwise, life would just go on, the way it always did. 3 days later, while he was repairing a fence along the edge of his property, he heard the sound of engines approaching. Not one, but several. He looked up and saw a line of shiny black cars coming down the dirt road. They looked so out of place against the backdrop of dusty fields and old barns that for a second, the farmer thought maybe they were lost. The cars stopped near his house. Men in suits stepped out first, looking serious and professional, like the kind of people who belonged in big offices in the city, not on a farm in the middle of nowhere. Then the last car door opened, and the man from the accident stepped out. The farmer froze for a second. The stranger looked completely different now. He was dressed sharply, wearing a clean, expensive-looking suit. He walked with confidence, no longer weak and pale like the man pulled from the wreck. The farmer wiped the sweat from his brow and walked toward him slowly. "You're on your feet," the farmer said simply. The man smiled. "Thanks to you," the farmer nodded. "Glad to see you made it." The man looked around the farm, at the small house, the weathered barn, the field stretching far into the distance. Then he turned back to the farmer. "I came to thank you properly," he said. The farmer shook his head. "No need for that. You were in trouble. I just did what anyone would have done." But the man's eyes said he didn't believe that. "No," he said firmly. "Most people wouldn't have run toward a burning car. Most people wouldn't have risked their lives for a stranger." The farmer didn't know what to say to that. He just shrugged and said, "Didn't feel like a choice. You needed help, that was all." The man studied him for a moment, then smiled faintly. "You still don't know who I am, do you?" The farmer frowned. "Don't reckon it matters." But it mattered more than he realized. The man took a deep breath and said, "My name is Daniel Carter. I own Carter Enterprises. We build hospitals, schools, tech companies. Maybe you've heard of us?" The farmer blinked. He hadn't, not really. He didn't follow business news or big city headlines. His life was about weather, soil, and livestock, not companies and skyscrapers. "I'm a billionaire," the man continued, watching the farmer's expression. "That day, you didn't just pull some ordinary stranger from that car. You saved someone with more money than he knows what to do with." The farmer just looked at him for a moment, then gave a small shrug. "Doesn't change a thing. Rich or poor, you were still a man in trouble." And he meant it. The man's wealth didn't impress him. All he saw that day was someone who needed help. The man smiled at that answer, like it was something he didn't hear often. "I figured you'd say that," he said softly. "But I can't just walk away without doing something for you." The farmer shook his head again. "Don't need anything." The man didn't argue, not yet. He just said, "You may not want it, but you deserve it, and I'm going to make sure you get it." The farmer didn't fully understand what the man meant. He figured maybe he was talking about a handshake, a thank you card, maybe a small reward. He had no idea what was coming next. Because when a man with more money than entire towns decides he owes you his life, things can change in ways you never see coming. The farmer didn't think much about what the man said that day. He figured the stranger would go back to his big city life, his businesses, and his world of money and power. People like that didn't stay around folks like him for long. He was just a farmer. His world was dirt roads, crops, and long days under the sun. But 2 mornings later, the farmer heard the sound of cars again. When he stepped out of his small farmhouse, he saw the same line of shiny black vehicles pulling up. For a moment, he thought maybe they had the wrong place. What could they possibly want from him now? This time, the man didn't come alone. With him were several other men carrying folders, talking on phones, dressed in the same sharp suits. They looked out of place among the chickens and the old tractor parked by the barn. The man smiled as he walked toward the farmer. "I told you I'd be back," he said. The farmer nodded slowly. "I remember. Wasn't sure you meant it, though." The man chuckled softly. "Oh, I meant it. I told you I couldn't walk away after what you did. I owe you my life." "That's not something I take lightly," the farmer shrugged. "Don't owe me anything. I did what anyone would have done." The man looked him straight in the eye. "No, most people would have stood back. Most people would have called for help and waited. You didn't. You risked everything for someone you didn't even know. I can't forget that." The farmer didn't answer right away. He was a man of few words. He didn't see himself as a hero. To him, that day had been about one thing: saving a life before the fire took it. Nothing more, but the man wasn't done. He motioned toward one of the men carrying folders. "I've been thinking about what I can do to thank you," he said. "And I realized money alone isn't enough. It has to be something that lasts, something that matters." The farmer frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" The man handed him a set of papers. "I bought the land next to yours," he explained. "And I'm giving it to you. Free, no strings attached. Your farm just doubled in size." The farmer stared at the papers, speechless. Land was everything to a farmer. More land meant more crops, more income, a better future for his family. "I can't take this," the farmer said finally, his voice quiet. "Yes, you can," the man said firmly. "And that's not all. I'm replacing your old equipment. New tractors, new tools, everything you need. And I'm setting up a scholarship fund in your name for any kid in this county who wants to study agriculture. You saved my life. I want to honor yours." The farmer felt like the ground had shifted under him. He had expected maybe a handshake, maybe some small reward. Not this. He looked at the man for a long moment. "Why are you doing all this?" The man's expression softened. "Because you reminded me what matters," he said quietly. "When I was trapped in that car, I didn't think about my companies or my money. I thought about whether I'd ever see my family again. And then you came through the smoke and pulled me out. You gave me my life back. How can I put a price on that?" The farmer didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to gifts. He wasn't used to people making a fuss over him. His life had been about hard work, not handouts. "I don't need any of this," he said finally. "I know you don't," the man said. "That's what makes you deserve it even more." The men in suits began unloading boxes, legal documents for the land transfer, keys for the new equipment that would arrive soon, plans for the scholarship fund. It all felt unreal, like it was happening to someone else. The farmer stood there, watching as his quiet farm filled with people making big plans. He still wasn't sure how he felt about it, but deep down, he knew this wasn't about money or land. It was about one man's life being saved and another man's way of saying thank you in the only way he knew how. The farmer didn't realize it yet, but his life was about to change forever. And it all started with a single moment of courage on a smoky roadside. The days that followed felt strange to the farmer. All his life, things had been the same. Work started at sunrise, ended at sunset, and the world beyond his small town rarely touched him. But now, big changes were arriving one after another. Trucks came carrying new farming equipment, shiny tractors, tools he had only ever seen in catalogs, things he never imagined owning. The land next to his was now his too. Papers were signed, official and final. The billionaire had made sure. Everything was done legally, quickly, and without any trouble. The farmer didn't quite know how to feel about it. He was grateful, of course, but it didn't sit easily on his shoulders. He hadn't saved that man for rewards. He had done it because someone needed help. To him, that was the beginning and the end of it. One evening, the man himself came back. To the farm, no suits this time, no big group of people. Just him, wearing simple clothes, driving himself in a regular car. He found the farmer repairing a fence, hard at work. "I see," the man said, smiling as he walked up. The farmer nodded. "Fences don't fix themselves," the man chuckled softly. "I wanted to come without all the noise today. No papers, no business talk, just me." The farmer leaned on the fence post. "Why?" The man looked around at the wide open fields, the quiet farm, the evening sky painted in orange and purple. "Because I realized something," he said slowly. "Money can buy a lot of things. Land, equipment, even comfort. But it can't buy courage. It can't buy kindness. You taught me that." The farmer shifted uncomfortably, not used to speeches like this. "I'm no hero," he said finally. The man smiled. "Maybe not in your eyes, but you are in mine. You gave me my life back. That's not something I can ever repay fully." The farmer didn't know what to say to that. He wasn't a man of many words. The man continued, "The scholarship fund we set up? We named it after you. The Farmer's Courage Scholarship. Kids from this county, kids with dreams bigger than their wallets, will get a chance to study because of you. And every time they do, they'll know it started with one man who didn't walk away when things got dangerous." The farmer felt something tighten in his chest. He had lived his life quietly, expecting little, asking for nothing. The thought that his name, his simple, ordinary name, would help young people long after he was gone, that meant more than all the land or machines or money. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "This isn't about money," he said softly. "It's about family. Inside is my personal number. If you or anyone you care about ever needs help, day or night, you call me. No questions asked." The farmer took the envelope slowly. "You don't need to do all this," he said again, his voice quieter this time. "I know," the man said. "But I want to." Because that day, when the fire was closing in, I realized something else too. All the wealth I had, it wouldn't have mattered if no one had cared enough to reach into that car for me. You cared. And now I want to care back. They stood in silence for a moment, the evening breeze moving through the tall grass. Finally, the farmer said, "You're welcome here any time. But leave the cars behind next time. My neighbors are starting to talk." The man laughed, a warm, genuine sound. "Deal." In the weeks that followed, life on the farm changed in ways the farmer never expected. The new land produced more crops than ever. The scholarship fund sent its first students to college. The old equipment that had broken down constantly was replaced by machines that made his work faster and easier. But some things didn't change. The farmer still rose with the sun. He still worked hard. He still lived simply, because that was who he was. And sometimes, when he sat on his porch in the quiet evenings, he thought about how one moment a stranger in a burning car, a decision made in seconds, had brought all of this into his life. He never asked for any of it. But maybe that was the point. Sometimes the kindness you give away comes back to you in ways you never expect, carried by people who will never forget what you did for them when it mattered most.